Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Low-Code Campfire. And here we are on Friday, November 4th, and I'm standing in for Dale today. So I'll just go through a few introductory items about the Low-Code Campfire. This is a community gathering, and we come together to share ideas with each other and to help each other out. So bring any problems you might be having and be ready and willing to participate and help others. We encourage you to bring things to show us that are really cool that you're doing as well. All of our campfires are recorded, and they are posted on YouTube at youtube.com/plantanap. And we encourage you to subscribe to our channel so you can get updates when they're posted. Our agenda is pretty simple. We'll have some introductions, and then we'll do a first call to anyone who wants to jump in and start asking for help or sharing something. And we'll take a look to see if there's any new contributions to the Campfire website. We'll take a look at our new feature requests on the community website. And we'll take a look to see if we have submitted topics. And then we'll have a session where we can tell any ghost stories about using PlantanApp that we've experienced recently. So please participate. That's the most important thing. We need to have everyone jump in and talk about anything they're working on that they think might help others. And we encourage you to do that by just unmuting and talking when we ask you to, or you can also use chat and the raise hand function within Zoom. We have not many guidelines here. We ask that if you are in a noisy place that you keep muted and that you be courteous to each other. You can submit questions and topics ahead of time by scanning this QR code in front of you. And with that, I'll go ahead and move into the introductions section of the call. Once again, I'm Patrick, and I think most of you here know me. I don't see anybody new, but good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
everyone.
Well, how's everybody doing? Anything exciting going on? Anything anybody wants to jump in with and just start asking for assistance?
Can anyone help me start my snowblower?
Do you really need your snowblower already?
Do you need that, Jim?
Apparently. Last year we bought one and we never used it. And this year we have about 7 inches this week.
Oh, wow.
Oh my.
Jim, where are you?
Bend, Oregon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Meanwhile,
today,
this weekend we're
today
scheduled for 70 degrees.
Today it's warming up and raining, so I think it's going to go away on its own.
Oh, yeah, it'll go away soon. Yep.
Well, the thing you have to do to prevent excessive snow is go out and buy a snowblower. That will do it. So you're in good shape.
Yeah, that's what I did last year. The neighbors hated me. You know, so why did you do that? Well, we won't get any.
I have a snowblower that is way oversized for where I live. I used to live in way upstate New York, and Ben, just so you know, like a long ways from Long Island is where I used to live. And I had a huge snowblower that I wasn't able to sell before I moved to Maryland, and so now I have this ridiculous snowblower that I probably won't need.
You're prepared for lake effect snow in Maryland.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, with climate change, don't joke.
It could happen, yeah.
Hey,
Who knows?
Do snowblowers work on leaves on the ground?
I know that when you don't rake your driveway before it snows, the snowblower does blow the leaves as it's picking up the snow. I've experienced that. Too bad PlantanApp can't solve any of that. I don't think. I don't think we have an ability yet to start your snowblower yet, Jim.
Not yet.
No, all you need to get, you need to get a snowblower that's an automated robot that has a built-in Wi-Fi with API call. Then you get your Plantain app website to call that API to activate the snowblower.
Yeah.
Like a modern tractor.
Hey, we can start
Like
cars
that
from
idea, Ben.
we can start cars from our phone now, so why not?
I have a non-snowblower related question, if that's okay.
No, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Yep.
I think in the last Low-Code Cafe, Dale mentioned something about Plantain app not being able, having upgrade not go well because the user, I believe the database user was not permissioned properly. Did I hear
Yeah, so
that correctly?
Yes, it's something that can happen, and we definitely have a confirmed case of that, and but in most situations it's unlikely, but it's the user that you use that's stated in web.config to access the database needs to in the SQL Server itself needs to be a DB owner. Needs to have the role DB owner.
They don't have to be an SA, correct?
I believe maybe, but
No. Ben's shaking his head.
No, SA is dangerous. There will be no reason
Okay.
for that. That's going
Right.
to give you server administrative access. That's not required. You
Oh, okay.
need just full administrative access to the database
To
itself.
the database.
DB owner will give you that. That gives you basically complete control over the individual database.
Okay. Do you know, anybody know off the top of their head whether or not that's kind of the default setup when you install DNN?
It's based off of how it's not so much the default setting for DNN, it's whatever default setting in how you create your accounts. Like for example, I use an actual management application to basically manage creating websites and whatnot on my servers.
Right.
It's called Solid CP. Solid CP, when you create a database and you create a user, its default is that user is going to be a DB owner.
Of that
So if
database.
of that database. So when you do it in that respect, like you have a process, as
Yep.
long as you're always creating that initial user as a DBO,
Yep.
you'll be fine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions regarding that?
Well, I would say that it would be worth checking to see if your user is DB owner or not before running the upgrade. I thought mine was, but it turned out that it wasn't.
Yeah, that's basically what's happened to me. I have, went to do a couple of upgrades and one of them failed. Actually, a couple of them failed. And they were pretty much identical sites in a lot of ways. So it was kind of odd and I had not yet been able to figure it out. So I'm going to go check my database users.
Yeah, by default, mine have always been DB owner. However, the site that I had a problem with, I had cloned from another site to get it started.
Okay.
And, somewhere along the line, it didn't get that goal.
Okay.
Anybody else have something they want to jump in with?
I was just going to pick up on the database permissions. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that all of DB owner is required. I think it might be possible, or it should be possible, to put together the specific permissions that DNN/Plantain app needs, So if you are in a situation where your DBA or your hosting provider isn't keen on providing the DBO role or the DBO permission, it should be possible to stitch together what's needed, because there are some other things that the DBO gives you that I don't think you'll need. So that might be, I don't know if documentation exists along those lines, but that might be handy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Because like I said, I have one site that works and on the same server using the same, what I think to be the same configuration. Other sites don't work from an upgrade standpoint. So I was just a bit unsure, but I will definitely look at that from a permission standpoint. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Any other comments from anybody, or another any other topic somebody wants to address?
Yeah, a quick comment. I saw that Jim posted a script on checking if you were DB owner. You know, I ran that script myself, and it gave me a different result whether I was logged in to the website and using the SQL console, or I was in the SMS server. I had different results with that script.
Yeah. So when you're running it in SQL Console, SQL Console is using your default connection. So it's using that user that's so when it's using that user that's specified. When you were logged into SSMS, you probably weren't logged in as that user.
Yeah. Just thought
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
I had to think about that for a while, but then I thought, yeah, I'm a different user here.
Yeah, that's something that it took me a while in the very beginning of using DNN to get used to that the SSMS. Usually I log in as a full SA, so I have full access to do all these different things. And then I go to try something on the DNN site and it doesn't work. And I'm like, why not? It works here, works there. Then I realize, you know, two different users, gotta log in using the correct username.
Yep.
Alter ego.
And certainly you can, you know, if you want to, you can use the credentials that you have there to log into SSMS as well. Any other thoughts?
Ben, I like that effect you just did. It looked like, from our perspective, it looked like you just reached into another dimension and pulled something out.
I'm laughing
Distort.
because when I did it, I happened to look over and I saw my hand disappear. And I swear I thought the same exact thing. I was like, it just looked like I went into some dimensional portal and pulled something out. And then you go and said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, on one of our calls, Dale had a backdrop that had a window behind him, and he got up and walked away from his desk, and it looked like he just disappeared through the window. It's magical. And I don't know if any of you know this, but I'm going to share that Dale is a bit of a magician, and we got to see some of his routine when we were meeting, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun to see the stuff that he does. So we when he did that, we joked around about him being a magician when he disappeared through the window. So at the next campfire, make sure you ask him about that. Anybody else?
I can make food disappear.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other topics they want help with? So if not, then going to go ahead and move on to for those of you who joined the Low-Code Cafe on Wednesday, you know that we're close to releasing version 123 of Plantain App, and we just wanted to share with you that announcement should be coming fairly soon of the when we're going to release. And just wanted to touch base to see if anybody had any questions about any of the topics that were covered in 123, or want to dive into anything in any more detail.
Well, I saw a lot of really neat stuff. I'm looking forward to putting my hands on using it myself. Probably have more questions after we see it.
Yeah. And I have a site ready in case anybody wants to take a look at anything in more detail.
Is there anything available to see yet over the multi-portal side of things? I know Dale wasn't able to show anything on Wednesday, but is there more that can be shared yet?
At least not from me.
Okay.
There's
Fair
not. I haven't dived into that yet either. So
Fair enough.
yeah, that's definitely the more complex setup. So I think the way the versioning is working now is just for storing everything in Git. I think that's going to work a lot better than what we currently have with everything being committed as soon as you do it. Now, of course, commits are a very deliberate and a deliberate thing that you have to do, and I think it makes it more clear about what's being committed, and then you're able to go back and look at the commits in your repository to look for specific things. So I think that's a real improvement just for as far as basic versioning of the system. Anybody have any thoughts on what you saw on that? The differences there?
I had that open question from Wednesday on the way versioning was working.
Yeah, and we've talked about that some, and I don't have a definitive answer for you on that just yet, but we will. Does anybody want to take a look at any of those features? Turn to my window here where I have it. Is everybody clear on what's happening with how the changes in automation are? I think I need to refresh my site here. How the changes in automation are leading towards a full admin UI refactor for the entire product. So the things that you're seeing happening in automation are ultimately going to end up in all of your admin interfaces. In both in configuration and on the site when you go to look at the settings for listings and forms and tabs. What we're seeing happen here is ultimately going to end up in all of those places. So feedback that you have about this is really, really important, because we're perfecting it here, and then and before we start deploying it throughout the product.
In that top bar where it's got a link to a feedback form, just when I go to that
yeah.
form, it doesn't work.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah, for some reason it didn't take me to a login.
it took you to a login, you said?
No, it did not. It just took me to a page that said feedback, but I didn't get the form up.
But you didn't have this form?
No.
I'll have to check into that. That might be a permission issue there. Interesting.
Yeah, that's why I put my feedback into a ticket. So.
And that's fine. That's any as long as you get is any way you have to give us feedback, that'll be good. What do you guys think about the ability to drag and drop from
Actions.
from an execute actions into the parent. That's kind of a cool thing.
Well, you know, I liked it. Yeah, that's really cool.
Was everybody was anybody that's on here not on the call on Wednesday?
Sorry, I was otherwise under the weather.
Oh, that's okay. But I think you're probably already aware of this, aren't you? That so we have this now, so I can take this action from here and just drag it right down into the into my execute actions, and then likewise back again if I need to.
That's a lot better than having to export, import, and delete.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Having worked with it a little bit, one of the things that kept catching me, and I'm sure it's just an issue with getting used to it, is that the icon for conditions doesn't say conditions to me. It says code.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I keep looking for where on earth are the conditions gone? And I just wonder if a different symbol might be better. And when you've got a long stack of actions and you want to add another one to that action stack, having to go all the way to the top is a bit odd. I kept, when I'm in there, I kept adding an on error action rather than to the action stack because it was underneath and I clicked on it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So if
because
so
of
you've
this.
just got the one action there. If you imagine you've got half a dozen or more,
Mhm.
when you go to add the next one, they get, especially if one of them is expanded, finding the next one, you think, oh, it's just, it's nice. It sticks at the top, but I would keep looking. It's
Yeah.
habit. I think you look down and you see add
Yeah,
action.
because we're used to it being here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there is an add action there. It's just for the wrong bit. But as I say,
Yeah.
I think it's having once it's all consistent, it'll be a lot easier. But at the
Mhm.
moment, that was one of the things that was rats, done it again.
Yeah, and that is often that happens when when companies
Oh, yeah.
change things. I think that ultimately this probably will be better because it is sticky and it's there. But yeah, we're used to having the add action down here to the. We also have this ability to collapse them all as well. But that also is at the top, so it doesn't really.
When
help
you
you
add a new
necessarily.
action, does it jump you directly to that action? I didn't realize if it does or not.
I think so. So let me just yep, there we go.
Okay.
And automatically highlights the text untitled action. So what we're doing here is encouraging you to actually label your actions. Before we didn't, it was just a blank line, so you didn't necessarily, label them. But here that automatically gets highlighted, so you can just start typing something to label the action. And I don't know if anybody saw me doing that a few minutes ago, but you can, I can also take this action and drag it down here into the on error section, and likewise I can drag back. So I can drag between this, so not just between, going from the from one of my so I can't so not just doing this, but I can also drag down into different sections. And so that'll be the same when we get to forms and we have the init events. We'll be able to drag between the different init sections, so we can on page initialization, on pre-init, and then on init. So we'll be able to drag between those different sections and forms as well. Just like here, where I can drag this to the on error section.
That's really nice. I'm looking forward to that in the forums.
Yep, definitely.
Time saver. As you're
Is
looking
that
at a
is
stack
that
of
your
actions,
validation working there?
What's that? Oh,
Like
yep,
I said.
yep, yep. So it's telling me that I actually have to have some code here. So yep, that's correct. Unfortunately, all the validation that we want ultimately is not there yet, but we're definitely getting started with it.
You know, Patrick, as you're looking at a stack of actions, there's an element that is automatically filled in, like create tokens or execute whatever. You know, I found myself wanting to know if an action was running a workflow or if it was doing a built-in API for adding a new record.
Mm-hmm.
I wished that it would stand out more, that it was a workflow versus a different execute action. And I thought, well, I could start naming my workflows with workflow in the name, but that makes them longer. It's just a thought that I had. It would be cool in the action stack if the name has some sort of symbol or color or something that indicated it was a workflow versus a built-in thing.
Yeah. Well, and you know, but this probably doesn't answer the question, but you know, we still do want to do things like the some things we've talked about is being able to search your actions. So you know, if you knew the name of a workflow that you were looking for that specific action, you perhaps the search would help. That's something that we still want to do. And I think that being able to one of the things we've talked about is also being able to filter them specifically for different types of actions. But yeah, I think that's a good idea if we could somehow have a categorization of them so that we know what the different kinds are.
At a glance, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in another related idea, you know, I sometimes, I'm sure you guys do too, have a pretty tall stack of actions. It'd be nice to be able to flag or tag or make a color change on one so that it would stand out, because you know you hit save and then they all collapse and you come back and you want to find the right one again. It'd be nice to just see a color change or some kind of icon or something that said, hey, I'm working on this one, so you can come back to it a lot quicker. Visual identification. So I think I've got that in a future request from quite a while
Yeah,
ago. I just
that does sound familiar. Yeah.
You're in the that's where I'm doing stuff like that.
Any other thoughts? Any other questions about any of the other things that we covered on Wednesday? Okay, well, let's open it back up. Does anybody have anything else that you want to ask the team about?
Well, Patrick, you know, I did want to jump in there first, but I would like to know how to configure the Trumblywug editor a little bit more. I'd have to add maybe some buttons to it or take one away. Does anyone work with that?
Good question, Mark. I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah, I saw that there was a link to the documentation. And I did go there and I see there's some lines of JavaScript that look pretty straightforward, easy to do. I just don't know where to put that JavaScript. You know, page header, module header in a form. I tried a couple of things and I didn't get anywhere, so I just thought maybe I'd ask these panel of experts.
Yeah, I think I did something a while back, but it's been a long time and I haven't. So how about the buttons configuration field? Have you did you? Because that's, I think if you wanted to change buttons, that's where you would. And have you tried that?
Yeah, I did.
Mhm.
I wasn't what I'd made some guesses on what to type in there, and that didn't turn out right. So yeah, what to type in there would be a good thing to know.
And has anybody worked with that at all?
I have, and I'm looking to see if I can find the code.
Yeah, I worked with it and I broke it.
You know, I there's a striking thing missing. I would like to add a button for changing the font size, and it's got a color changer, but it doesn't have a size. And I thought, well, that should just be there. But so I'd like to add that. I'd like to be able to change the background color through a token would be awesome. There's just some things like that. Well, we can certainly talk about something else for a little while if you want.
Okay, so this is, you know, obviously of no use, but let me in an ultimate but let me just show that I did add a button. It's pretty simple, but it's not very useful because it's a button that already exists. So the horizontal rule button, and I added another one here. And you know, and obviously that's already in the text for the buttons, but all I did was just come here and I just used that right there. So I think that if you go through here and find the names of the buttons, which,
There is
you know,
one called font size, but it's a plugin near the top in the get started section. Yeah, use plugins. And there's one for font size in here.
oh, you're saying to add something that's not automatically included. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it appears that font size is not automatically included, unless it is, and I don't know it, but there's a plugin for font size.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know enough about it to, you know, to really no, but I would think that
One of the ones I was looking at trying to do was to eliminate the ability to upload an image.
oh, to eliminate that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that would be I think fairly simple. If we go to form.
I have a while you're there statement as well.
I found where
So-
I've used it if you want me to show when you're done.
So here we go. You see that was Matt, right?
Yep.
I was asking. Yep. So you see here where I have that. I think if I just delete that and delete the extra pipe and then save it.
While you're there, can you
Yep.
delete the first one too? View HTML.
Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, maybe I need to
Now we
keep
don't
that.
know which one's going to break it.
No, I don't need to. Okay. All right, save that. Reload it. Okay, so I don't have the HTML button anymore, and I don't have the ability to add an image anymore either.
Well, that's actually pretty easy.
Yeah, so for the the basic buttons that is, and I feel like that on here, there's probably more buttons that we can find, but I'm just not sure exactly where to look.
I could show
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you want to
something
show.
that shows adding something new.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, hopefully everyone could see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, so basically I have the Trumbo wig right here. These are all the default stuff. Now, one of the things that I wanted to add, which is not part of it, is this guy, this pre-formatted. So this is actually JavaScript.
Cool.
And
Yep.
I found it straight off of a CDN. So you could just basically use load static files, bring in whatever JavaScript it is. It could even be on your own system. So if you want, save the JavaScript somewhere on your local site and you can reference it here. So you don't have to put it into a box somewhere or into a preload or anything like that. You can actually load it right through an action. Once this code is loaded, it then becomes available to that Trumblewig to be able to use. So in that respect, that was this command right there. So that's that static Java code adds the code to be able to use this button, which then displays it right there. And that's adding a brand new button. That's not something that exists as part of the default settings for the Trumblewig control.
Cool.
That's an add-on. So that's basically how you can do something like that. If you want to add brand new buttons, with the whatever JavaScript it is that you find, just load it first using that in the event as load static files, bring in that JavaScript. This really does not matter. It just needs an ID. So, whatever you put in here, I just like to preface it like that, just so that I have it. This is the actual code. The code itself will automatically run, and then you just have to use it appropriately. So when you're actually, excuse me, going back into the field, like I said, the JavaScript specifically creates this token, so to speak, token name, button name that you can add to this list, and it'll now recognize that button name and then display it appropriately as defined in the JavaScript.
I think that answers my question. I didn't know where to put the JavaScript. I think that's it right there.
Cool.
See, I will say one thing. I know I've used it elsewhere as well, this load static files, but one thing I will say, like for example, this section here actually does accept tokenized values, even though it doesn't say it. The nice thing about that is this little guy here. So for example, if you're using something like this, where you're using a CDN, you can create a apply token, or excuse me, create update token. So used to saying apply. You could do that above this and just say CDN version and then put 2.21.0. And then you put that token in here. Now later, if you want to update the version, all you have to do is go to that tokenized area, update the version number. That's it. And then everywhere where you're referencing that version is automatically going to update. So it would update this line here and pull the correct JavaScript version that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Just an easier way to manage and maintain it.
Thanks, Ben.
I wonder what would happen if you had, well, would there be a problem if you had multiple forms on the page and were both doing that? It just load. I suppose it would just load it would load the same file twice. So you'd have to be careful. About that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say at that point you would probably, just for the sake of kind of not overtaxing the system, you would only really need it on one form. Once you have it on one form, it should be available everywhere.
Because, yeah. Although Yeah, it would be interesting to experiment, see if it's scoped, because remember with the Google Maps code, we got caught because it's recently changed to scope some of the JavaScript. So yeah, something to explore, but that seems like a really powerful technique.
I use a shared form in my installation that has those kind of loads, and I just put that form on a page, so I only have to edit it in one place.
We do the same
It's only
thing.
loading it once.
It's like a universal code injector. Could be.
Cool.
Yeah. Previously, we've done that. We've loaded the common bits of JavaScript through the skin or theme files, because there are controls there to set the order and to avoid loading the same thing multiple times. But if you're using a bought-in skin, that's not really an option.
Hey, well, thank you guys.
Yeah, and thank you for that question. That was a good one. Good discussion. Anybody else want to follow Mark's example and jump in? Something that's been bothering you and you just can't get it figured out.
I have a general question. Are there facilities, or is there best practices facilities for constructing and kind of reconstructing JSON strings? So if I've got, for example, output from a SQL query that produces a JSON string, but I need it to be combined with some other JSON elements. Is there other than trying to put that, in this case, all in one big SQL query, which is possible but potentially cumbersome, are there ways to do that sort of combination after the fact?
So you would be adding, you mean, would you be adding to an array or something like that? So adding another value to an array, or
potentially, okay, so in the case of, let's say, well, in my case, it's ultimately going to wind up in a report. So I need to pull all of the information one time for the report. That's kind of all the global variables, you know, the on-off switches for options and things like that. And then I need to go back and pull individual elements from that will build the data for the report. I might have to go back in and grab a text file. I might need to go, you know, run a query to, you know, execute and pull back some statistical information. And then I need to ultimately, ideally, take those chunks of information and put them together in one JSON package that can then be consumed elsewhere. Now, it's kind of a very broad question. I apologize, but it's more of a conceptual one.
If I could just ask really quick, you're already using SQL to do an output of a table result set to JSON? That's how you're getting your original? Okay, so you already know how to export your tables to JSON format. So what you're basically looking to do is re-import that JSON back into a table structure, modify it, and then re-import it back out as a more expanded JSON, correct?
Not necessarily, although that is a possibility. What I was getting at was to combine, you know, the results from JSON A with JSON B and JSON C, and basically put them together in a fashion that would then be, in this case, consumable as one JSON element for, in this case, a report, not necessarily going back into SQL. I would be done with SQL at that point.
So the structure, the ultimate structure of your JSON, to put it simply, was that you'd have a hierarchy of elements, and your first element is report A, and if you expand out that report A element, you get all of the individual values, and then report B would expand out, so you have a tree structure in your JSON. Is that what you're thinking of?
Right, and the highest level element would be for like the subject of the report. The date it was run and all of the other pieces that are one time only that support the report structure. And the report can be variable based on does a section print or not print. So in certain runs, it may have data included. The next run, it doesn't have that data included. And then to take those chunks of data and combine them together into that structure.
Yeah, we did something similar with APIs, because ultimately, of course, JSON is just a string. So
right.
we would use the logic in the API to stitch together a structure. So if with token replacement, so you create your initial your elements and then stitch them together as a string, and then say that this string is JSON, to expose that string and say, by the way, this string is JSON.
So you would work with, they're not JSON when you're doing the stitching, they're only JSON when you do the output.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As long as the string of characters is valid JSON, you can treat it either as a string or as JSON.
Okay.
So you can just concatenate a bunch of strings.
Okay. That's a very good idea.
Just out of curiosity, is there any particular reason why you're avoiding using SQL to modify your JSON string to add your additional info?
None in particular, Ben. I just am trying to find the most effective way to do it. And kind of to what the technique Jim was saying is, it's relatively easy to write the chunks of SQL to get, for instance, in this case, the outside wrapper for the report. And then another chunk to go get section A, section B, section C, and so on. But then they're all separate. In this case, at this moment, they're all separate pieces of data, JSON, whatever the output is. So I don't necessarily I don't think I want to bring them back into SQL to manipulate them, although I suppose I could. But what I'd like to be able to do is, more to the point, like Jim was saying, take those components and treat them as, as tokens, and then put them all together as one final JSON string. And that's, I don't know, that sounds like a viable option, but you have different thoughts, Ben?
No, I mean, I just personally, I use SQL a lot,
Yeah.
even for, string manipulation, like in what you're describing. To me, I just find it a lot easier and less cumbersome to just do it in a SQL statement, feed it all the pieces that you want, let the SQL statement recombine everything and spit out your new value that you want to use, as opposed to incorporating extra or external API calls or trying to figure out JavaScript code or anything of that nature, because then it becomes a little bit more complex and harder to manage moving forward as well, where pretty much all right there. Even if you have 3 SQLs and you're coming out with 3 separate pieces, do a 4th SQL that will then combine them.
Mhm.
You know, when you're talking about JSON text, I mean, it really, the processing speed, especially if you have a decent SQL server, is really not going to be all that intensive.
Right, right.
And you wouldn't even have to write it into a table. You could just use the SQL language to
Mhm.
manipulate what are effectively strings.
Yep.
And
I mean, I can show you code. I have it right on my screen right now on how to read a JSON string in SQL so that it basically looks like a table again. And
Mhm.
then you can do what you want with that data. And then all you have to do is you already know how to take a result set and export it as JSON. So once you've manipulated your table, inserting any additional values, just re-export it again as JSON.
my experience is it can get a bit mind-bending when you have hierarchical JSON trying to deal with it in SQL, when you've got nested elements, or but deeply nested elements.
Yeah.
It's possible, but because it works on the table metaphor, it can get a bit convoluted. But it's certainly very powerful, and as you say, very quick.
Well, the ultimate answer is that it's going to be lean toward the hierarchical organization. And that was kind of the genesis of my question. However, maybe something where both capabilities are needed. I could easily see. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ben.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I could easily see, for instance, there's in this setup, there are, say, 8 different major chunks of data. And inside there's, first of all, you can either have or not have an entire section, one of those chunks or one or more of those chunks. And then inside of each one of them, there's options to behave this way or that way inside that chunk. So, I mean, there's a lot going to go on. And mind bending is probably a good word to use to describe what I anticipate with this. But to Ben's point, it's probably something where I'll like to have both things at my disposal, because I could easily see, for instance, this is all going out via an API as the output mechanism. So I could easily see incorporating the logic to go execute the different chunks based on the switch values, yes, no, and then put together the string concatenation with the tokens, as you indicated, based on whether or not that chunk does or doesn't get executed. That makes perfect sense inside kind of a workflow metaphor. So that's great. But Ben, I'd love to see kind of what your thoughts are with respect to the SQL.
Well, yeah, I mean, here, can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, sure. Hold on a second.
Okay. So, I mean, basically there is code, like I said, in SQL. It's a little quirky one. You have to kind of learn it, but once you learn it, it makes sense. But basically whatever your string is, you're basically going to do a cross apply. You're going to open JSON, or you could do a from. This cross applies if it's nested. So this is actually showing you how to open up a nested one, but it's pretty straightforward from whatever your JSON string is, from OpenJSON, and that's gonna decompile that JSON and spit out back into a table fashion. Now, if what you're talking about, let's say, for example, this is your root JSON, right? So for like, this is, let's say, how it's built up. Let me just really quick. And let's just go this in here. So actually, let's call this A and B like you were saying. All right, so this is your root. And then what you want to do is you want to add A and B. And let's just say C has nothing. Because you said that sometimes it could be a situation where there's nothing, it's blank.
Yeah.
So you still can use SQL because you could say, okay, well, this is my original JSON that came in.
Mhm.
As long as you know the format and you
Yeah.
know how it's coming out, you can always manually insert what you need where you need it. So for example, if this is how it's coming out, you can strip out this last guy. So you would basically be rebuilding this JSON. Oops. Come on. What is it? 1 to the length of this minus 1, I believe. So that'll get you everything without the last bracket.
Yep.
Okay. Then, wait a minute. Yeah, that ends my last. Okay. Then from here, you're going to then add your comma for your next, and now you want to start an array.
Mhm. Yeah.
So your first item, so that basically starts your array,
Yeah.
and then say if, or actually, well, no, you may not want to do it that way only because if there's nothing at all, so you might want to say something like, yeah, actually, or I always do this only because I don't know if I'm going to have to put more than one line. But you know, here you're basically saying if any of your 3 items has data, then you're going to create an array.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, you don't need to change the original JSON.
Right. Right.
So at that point, then here you can break it out and say, well, actually, you know that there's an array. So say if JSON A is not equal to blank, then what we're going to do is we're going to add JSON A.
JSON.
Otherwise, you're going to add blank. And then you basically keep building it in that respect with all of your other items.
Right.
So
it's really whichever way you're most comfortable writing strings, really.
exactly,
Isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, and you
I
can
mean,
use whatever your whatever is most appropriate at the time. The transforming something into JSON from a different format is a different kettle of fish, but just building them up.
right. I mean,
Building
at
it
this
up.
point, we're not actually breaking out the JSON. We're not decoding it. We're not doing anything. You're literally only
Just
looking to concatenate,
stitching,
basically,
stitching it together.
stitching it together if certain items exist. So, I mean, this is a very basic, description of it, but you obviously would have to put a little bit more code in here with regards to, if A exists and B doesn't exist and C exists. So you make sure you put your commas in the right spot and stuff like that. But point is that all this is doing is basically doing the most basic of logic and saying, if you're supplying certain information, stitch it together. If it doesn't exist, don't stitch it together. When all is said and done, all you're going to do is select your original JSON that you've restitched together, and you have your new JSON string.
Right. Right. Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Thank you very much, both of you. Much appreciated.
It's the beauty of JSON. It's such a simple format, and it can all go horribly wrong very easily, but it's very easy. But it's very easy to work with.
Nice way to put it, Jim.
What is it? JSON, that website, JSON Beautify, is your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is incredibly useful. It really is.
Oh yeah.
I use that for HTML. I use that for JSON,
Yeah.
XML. I'm always using all of their tools because it's such an awesome utility.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you both.
Well, I am just really excited that we had a lot of good discussion on this call, because that helps move us right through. And here we are right at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and get us to the end here and share my screen again so we can wrap things up. And thank you, everyone, for all your participation, and I really appreciate it. And we'll wrap this up with the afterglow session right after I stop the recording. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.